Welcome to Flatfoots and Fools, a podcast about detective games. I'm Andrew, your traveling Sûreté Inspector, and today I am joined by my enthusiastic sidekick, John.
Hello, I'm John.
How are you doing this fine day?
Good. We played this game a while back, so I had to refresh my memory on everything. And how are you doing, man?
Pretty good. I also had to do the same memory refresher. A lot of things in between now and then. Life was busy in a good way.
And I got a deeper bench of detective games, so a lot of things kind of mesh together. But, you get back into it.
Yeah, and now we get to play with new audio equipment, which is always fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, today we are here to discuss 2013's long title, Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot, The London Case, from Blazing Griffin Studios.
Dun, dun, dun.
So how did you come to this game?
I think the same way you did through the Humble Bundle from 2024 last summer when we first started talking about doing this podcast and that showed up on our radar. I think I just jumped on it. And it's my second experience with the Hercule series. I think the first thing was the Kenneth Branagh movies. I think I watched the first one and then I started playing this stuff. And then I watched all of them.
There's been a ton of movies. Like they go back at least to the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple generations if you want.
I think everyone remembers the BBC series. Is it BBC?
Yeah, 1990s.
That's like everyone else's memory of it, yeah.
That was for me as well. That and a 1970s Murder on the Orient Express with not Peter Ustinov, a different actor that I can never remember the name of. But somehow I mentally transposed a different actor's face onto, which really doesn't help.
And just for everybody listening, I'm going to do my best not to say Hercule Poirot's name as much as I can, because apparently I've been told that I cannot pronounce it. And that's a running gag, apparently.
Yeah, so this is the third game in two different and odd ways. So it's the third game in the Poirot series, because the first one was made by a different studio. The second was made by Blazing Griffin, and we've covered that. That was the first cases. This is also the third deduction adventure game by the studio Blazing Griffin, because they also made Murder Mystery Machine, which we've covered.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I forgot it was the same studio.
Yep, and that one they released at pretty much at the same time as the first cases, so they had to have developed them in mostly parallel.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that when it comes to the assets.
Mm-hmm. So we get to what is this game? If you listen to the first cases, this will be pretty familiar stuff, but this is kind of a mixed detective narrative and deduction game. You've got adventure game style isometric movement. You investigate hard points for clues. You interview suspects. And then eventually you combine all of the clues on the mind map.
I mean, some murder board.
Yeah. Like a big pin board. That'll unlock conversations, and eventually you'll conclude whatever chapter you're on. Familiar stuff for these guys. We'll start with a brief overview of the introductory case. So I guess technically spoilers for the first, 10 minutes of the game. This will give you a good idea of how the game plays before we get into the actual serious spoiler territory, especially because the introduction case is meant as a tutorial and
a primer, yeah.
Yeah, isn't really a part of the larger mystery. You start out on an ocean liner heading over to London because you play as the Belgian police inspector. You start by chatting with some passengers to establish characters. Then there's a theft. Somebody's necklace or pendant gets stolen. So you start by investigating the person's room, looking for clues. And so you can rotate the room around, interact with a variety of objects. Then you go and talk to the suspects, like 4 people that you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
You get their stories, what they're up to. And then after this, you get to practice forming some deductions on the murder web by combining various clues. They can be contradictions, for example, like there was no evidence left behind, but somebody in contrast accused, which would make it like a slick crime versus someone accused the drunken porter of doing it, but he wouldn't be capable of doing that. So when you combine those, you get a contradiction that you have to sort of work through and decision on. Sometimes reinforcing stuff like, oh, the thief opened the safe without damaging it, and they didn't leave any fingerprints anywhere. So that reinforces, this was a slick crime. And then at the end of it, you get a couple more conversations, and the chapter concludes when you've put everything together properly.
Pretty standard stuff, honestly.
Yeah, and after that, you're on to the main case. With this one, we're going to have to dive into the spoiler zone pretty much immediately. So you have been warned.
You want to talk about the game mechanics and stuff first, or we're just jumping right in?
I mean, I figured we'd start going mechanically, but
Fair.
it's going to apply. So, game broadly structured into a set of chapters. So, each chapter you have some smaller goals that build towards solving the mystery. The game starts pretty quickly with art theft as your primary crime to investigate and escalates to murder and arson. So, let's go into mechanics.
So the game starts off the story with an art theft. And yeah, it escalates to murder, and things get pretty convoluted really quickly. One of the things I did like about the mechanics is this one had a lot more red herrings. And since I've not read the Agatha Christie novels, I was still trying to figure things out as we went along. There was all the suspects, and they had different motives, which is great. Trying to figure out who had the biggest motive to kill them, which was amusing when it comes to the characters.
Yeah, it's a good description for it. Like, I enjoyed the sort of the early and middle parts of the story when I felt like it was going to go somewhere interesting. And yeah, when you're digging into why is everyone acting suspicious? And that seems to be a great example of multiple subplots moving along underneath the main, where people are doing something they're not supposed to, but it may not be related to your big crime.
Which was different than the first game where you had two major subplots of who can be the murderer in the first game. And then you realize that like they kind of broke up into two teams, and you realize that one team was just like doing their own thing with the factory, and they had like low level motives. They had their own thing going. Whereas this one, most of the characters had an actual axe to grind with the person getting murdered. Zachariah, like he's a holdover from the first game, and they clearly make him not one of the suspects because that would be kind of wild from a storytelling standpoint. It would feel really unsatisfying as if a returning character was the murderer. I'm glad they like made it clear, like, no, audience. This guy, he's not one of the suspects. Figure out one of the new characters.
And there's plenty of them. One thing I did find was past maybe the mid section of the story, it just really faded out of my mind pretty quickly, which usually just means it wasn't very notable.
Who? Which part?
Kind of like almost everything that happened after like the fire.
Oh, yeah.
You investigate it, and I'm kind of like, oh man, I have to go back and look at what that was.
So spoiler for the murder. I'm always amused when any kind of like death murder thing describes poison as almond smell.
Oh yeah, the cyanide stereotype.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I was in the military, we were learning about chemical warfare and stuff like that. Like if you smell almonds or fresh cut grass, you're already dead. And just the bravado and intensity of the sergeant saying that, like, it never left me. So like, anytime I hear that, I'm just like, trauma.
Well, fortunately, this is a more gentlemanly murder, or it's not aerosolized. It's just ingested poison.
What is this based in? The early 1930s? 20s?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it'd be earlier. So this would probably be early 20s.
Yeah.
But it's all a guideline anyway.
Yeah. Wish they had the American flappers. The roaring 20s.
Yeah. So now, unfortunately, we get to move to a lot of things that didn't work as well. This is a longer list than I would like to admit.
We're a good news, bad news podcast. We start with good stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, number one problem, bugs. Woof. I don't know how many you ended up hitting.
For me, they were not as annoying as just the characters' faces.
Yep.
They got freaky faces. They got dead eyes. Oh, I played this on the Steam Deck.
It was not any better on PC.
Oh, no. That made it better on the Steam Deck because like I could be looking slightly away from the screen so my eyes wouldn't be stared at by their cold, dead eyes when they're non-moving mouths. Oh, that took me out of it.
In contrast with the last game, where when you had a conversation with someone, they would have a 2D portrait per conversation block that portrayed the character in the relevant emotion. And those would flip each time you'd go to a new conversation chunk.
JRPG style, man.
Yeah.
That worked better, honestly.
Oh, so much better. This game went for a full like 3D mouth moving animations, but they didn't have the time or the budget to actually make it work well. So instead you get mouths that just kind of like open and close randomly, dead eyes looking at you. Like overall, just that experience was much worse.
The way you said the mouth moving made me think of Muppets.
I mean, kinda, except this wasn't as cute.
But the dead eyes, man.
Yeah, so that part was really bad. Some other bugs I had come up were just dialogue you'd click to proceed to the next section of the conversation. It would start to bring up a section of dialogue, and then it would just skip to the next one without me touching anything. Fortunately, I didn't end up losing any critical conversation pieces, but that happened a lot. And then the part that drove me insane was pathing Poirot around.
Oh, God, yeah. There was so much walking back and forth.
So in addition to the problem of the game requiring you to walk back and forth a ton, I had a lot of issues where if you tried to move him across too far of a distance, he would just kind of walk into objects and get stuck walking into them like an NPC from the early 2000s walking into a wall. So like if there's a coffee table in the room, you couldn't just tell him to go across the room because he would go and get stuck on the coffee table. So you'd have to sort of like move partway along it and then move around it. And I had this in every major room at least once.
Oh, that's right. Because I'm playing on the Steam Deck, I don't have that problem because I'm using a controller. So that's a slight difference.
Yeah, that was a major thing. And then, as you mentioned, the design required you to walk around a huge amount. So unlike the previous setting where it was all in one house, this takes place across 5 or 6 different buildings, and you can fast travel between them. But you have to go to an entryway or something, and then it brings up the fast travel.
Subway or door or something, yep.
So there was a huge amount of traversal, which, because of the bugs, was a negative.
But on the flip side, the voice acting was great.
Oh, yeah. Should have put that up in the positive section.
We had to balance it out, going back and forth. Like, one of the reasons why I wouldn't look at the screen when they're talking, because I'm just listening and vibing out to the narrative. Also, Hercule does not run. I know, I get it. You told me last podcast he will not run. But damn, I'm from New York, man. Like, I gotta move faster.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, the not running here didn't work in a way that it sort of worked better on the last one. Maybe there was less to think about.
There was something away the memory map was different too. You had to make different kind of deductions than the last one. I think you had to make more different types of deductions, whereas this one you had to just link motives and people versus like walking through the logic. So you had like more to think about. Also, even though it was walking, you weren't walking that far in the first game. This one, you were going from a building to the train station down a ridiculously long street to get to the cafe.
Oh, God, yeah.
You didn't need to do that.
Yeah, that was really long. Then there was the room rotation. And similar to Murder Mystery Machine, in this game, you can rotate the room to one of the 4 isometric diagonal angles. And that meant every time you went somewhere, you had to scan all 4 rotations. And they have a similar problem where specific hard points may not be visible or interactable on some rotations.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really easy to miss that you could interact with something or get frustrated when you're like, oh, I want to go talk to this person. Why can't I click on them? Well, the answer is you need to rotate to a different angle before they're clickable. My thesis on this one is that took a lot of work, and they spent the time building the 3D environments, but didn't really have enough time to make them good. For me, no location felt very memorable.
Except where the lady got murdered. That's about it.
Oh, yeah, like the burned out room was a bit better.
Yeah. Only because I like that one. The candle puzzle. I like that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the device created.
I did not like the safes.
Oh, God, the fucking safes.
I cheated for that one, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that one was crazy amount of busy work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the game had what felt like unnecessary puzzles. Like almost like they were just dropped into the game for adding variety, but they didn't really integrate. Like the best example, as you mentioned, is Chapter 6. You needed to open 3 safes, decode messages. You had to run around a room, do all this crazy shit, took a ridiculous amount of time. And then eventually all of it was for a spare set of keys. And it's like, really? Who locks a spare set of keys behind 3 safes and several decoding systems? Like,
Yeah, like I'm paranoid as hell, and I wouldn't have 3 safes in my own home. Like you have like a lockbox with a key, but like still, man, that's paranoia. And that was like the soon-to-be ex-husband. Is it that serious?
Yeah, and again, first set of spare keys, not even like the family jewels in there.
Yeah, man. At that point, you're holding like smoking gun murder weapon.
Nope. How did you feel about the mind map and the clues to deduction system?
As I said, it felt different than the first one. It felt more simplistic somehow. The first one had more variety of questions. I think also because this one broke down things into smaller bites.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, where you would often have to make like 5 or 6 deductions, but they're the sort of thing that they would break it down into micro little steps, and
Mm-hmm.
you as a person would have already just gotten from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a great example where you find a bookcase and it's got like marks on the floor from where it's been moved. But you can't just go bookcase, marks on the floor, oh, there's something behind it. You have to do like 3 or 4 other little steps, like, oh, we heard him run into an object and we can see that the globe has been tipped over. So first we need to link that.
Yep.
Then we need to link this other thing. And it was like, no, just let me open the bookcase. I can see.
Let me into the bat cave.
Yeah. And I had a very similar problem with Murder Mystery Machine, where a lot of the things you had to link felt kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
There was the few that made sense. You're either reinforcing a point or highlighting a contradiction. Like those were fine. But then a bunch of other ones, I was like, why am I linking these 2 and not any of these other 6? So that was frustrating.
And this time, the sidekick for this one, he was extra dumb. They dialed down his intelligence immensely.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a back and forth thing, because like with the old Golden Age rules, you want them to be slightly less intelligent than the average reader, but here they took that way too far.
Yeah, man. Like going through some of the things, I was like, oh, that's right. I just kept tuning him out because he's too much of a sycophant. It was just unnerving. Granted, save Hercule's life, but still, I could have had him be less annoying.
Yeah, and I think that probably would just be a matter of tuning, maybe more testing. I don't know what it would have taken to fix that. How did you feel about the narrative payoff from this game?
For some reason, I was a little surprised. I don't remember at what point did I figure out what happened. When you started eliminating which ones were red herrings and which ones were eliminating suspects, it felt anticlimactic a little.
Yeah, that's a good term for it.
It's just like, you all had reason to kill her. Like, pretty good reasons. But you didn't, and it's this one person. Do you think that the Scotland Yard captain would have just let it go? I mean, yes, the narrative would have made Hercule be the hero because he's the world's greatest detective. But still, there was just something that irked me about finding out what happened.
Yeah, for me, it felt like it was missing a big aha moment.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put my finger on why it didn't have that.
What I did like was the epilogue, bringing it back to the prologue case. That I kind of actually enjoyed, where the suspect from the thief from the very beginning in the prologue case was revealed. And that was fun because that felt like Hercule was flirting with that character, and that was cute.
Yeah, I think that's a reference to like a Russian countess from the stories that Hercule's implied to have something with, but is always left very nebulous and up to the reader's imagination.
The story kind of petered out. Like, the murder was cool, and then everything after that just felt like a slog.
Yeah, petering out is a great term for it. Because yeah, just for whatever reason, like you wrap it up and it didn't feel like it ended on a high note.
It felt like work.
And not even like the good success you can get from work either. It was just sort of like, oh, this job's finished. On to the next one, I guess.
Was he on vacation or no? Hercule got hired for this, right?
Yeah, it was an official job to protect the art on the way to the exhibition.
That's right. He was working and he did it for reputation and everything. Like, I guess it lacked panache and spirit. It just felt like work, man.
That's where it is. And this is also tough because it's not a super easy thing to diagnose. Like, we can't just point to a case of like, oh yeah, the voice acting was bad, so the lines didn't deliver. It's like, no, the voice acting was good, but somehow the part where the game needs to combine all of the pieces to become the cohesive experience, it just didn't gel together properly.
Maybe because I can't think of any of the suspects that really stood out. They were all mustache-twirling villains to a certain extent. They were either caricatures or stereotypes, but there was nobody with like panache.
Yeah, unmemorable would be the term that I would end up sticking on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
My overall thoughts on this game are disappointing. It felt like it was the rough draft for the first cases, which is weird because it comes out 2 years later. So it should be the improved version, not the rockier version.
Yes. That would be a better way to put it. That's partially why we're being harsh about it, because this should have built on the first game.
Because like they proved they could do some of the things we're talking about better before. I have no insight into what happened in the studio. Maybe they were given 2 people and $10 and told make a sequel.
All the money went into the voice acting, which, again, was great. The voice acting's pretty good.
Yeah, like that's the big redeeming feature on that one.
This would have made a good audiobook.
Did you end up in broadly the same place?
In what way?
Just like overall feelings about the game.
Yes. And I'm a little bit bitter that I am one achievement short. Gameplays where there's an achievement to look at every painting in the church. And apparently I didn't do that. And in preparation for today, I tried to load up the game again. And it seems that I will have to replay the entire game. And just like the opening bit, you can't skip that. So I'm like,
Oof.
from an achievement hunter perspective, I'm like, yo, Steam says I played this for 5.1 hours. It's like, do I really want to go through like potentially 4 hours to get that one achievement? But it's like right there dangling. I can do it. That's 4 hours of my life though. That's like endgame levels of movie.
I wouldn't do it. I ended up missing 2 of them along the way, and I'm okay with that.
If I could just skip to chapters to like go back and do it, I mean, yeah, that's a no-brainer. But man, going through the whole thing again, I wouldn't want to do that. This is a game that's one and done.
Agreed on that.
And that's pretty much my thoughts.
Yeah, this is one that I definitely not the top of my recommendation list for just about anyone. Like maybe if they pick it up on super sale and are just a mega fan of this kind of game.
And I would suggest you playing on the Steam Deck. Like it's good for like you're on a trip on a plane or something. If you're flying from New York to California, 6-hour flight, like you could do this in that time.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
That is the scenario where I would play it.
Otherwise, a pretty disappointing experience. So, outside of this wonderful gem, what have you been playing lately?
Well, first I want to kind of foreshadow one of the future ones that we're going to do, which will be Agatha Christie Murder on the Orient Express. That, on the other hand, I am really looking forward to talking about. I will actually write like long-winded notes on that one. I'm looking forward to that. But currently playing Disco Elysium. I finally buckled down and just started fighting through that one. And I'm not gonna lie, every time I make a decision on like my skill points, I'm like nervous going, am I making the right choice? Like, what's wrong with this guy? Like, it's a different vibe than a lot of the point and click adventures that we've been playing.
Well, I'm going to be starting on that guy here soon as well. So that'll be fun to discuss.
I think the short one I'm doing is, well, I try to do a long game and a short game just to keep fresh. And the other one I'm doing is The Rise of the Golden Idol.
Yeah.
The DLCs for that. What are the games you're playing right now, man?
I'm partway through a real short one called Riley and Rochelle. It's kind of a documentary reconstruction game. Like you've got a bunch of old interview clips and articles about 2 musicians' careers, and then you're sort of reconstructing the dates certain things happened on. And the idea is that eventually someone's going to make a documentary out of this. But it's a lot of like digging around, looking for information, trying to figure out where the dates are. It also requires you to use like a calendar and have Google available because like someone will reference like, oh yeah, so this was the day the Olympic Games started that year. And you're like, okay, well I got to go, I think it's 1996, so I got to figure out when did the Olympics start.
Ah.
And then sometimes they'll mention it like you won't get a month, but you'll know that, oh, it's in 1995, it was a Monday the 12th. And so you got to look like, all right, what months are eligible for that?
It reminds me of something I read about like Where in the World's Carmen Sandiego and about people like modern players are complaining about the old game, like how you're supposed to know this stuff. And the answer was like, you had an almanac back then. You had like flipped through an encyclopedia. Like you weren't doing it just straight off top of your dome. Like that's just unrealistic.
So this one where you do need to do a little bit of that. It's not a huge amount, but it's fun. And then otherwise, I've been playing some Victoria 3 multiplayer with some friends.
Other than that, I've also been playing non-detective games. I've been playing a lot of Helldivers still to try to get my dailies in because that one it's just fun. An RPG, playing the old Suikoden 1 remastered edition. That brings back PS1 nostalgia. Oh, and one other thing from last time we talked, you had suggested the game Overboard.
Oh, yeah, that's on our list.
Yes. And when doing the homework for today's podcast, looking at the Detective Humble Bundle, I was like, oh, snap. I already own it through the Humble Bundle. I just have to activate it. So glad I went back to check what I have from the Humble Bundle store.
Yeah, that guy's on the menu.
Yeah, man. I look forward to it.
All right. And you can find us on Blue Sky at Flatfoots and Fools, one word, .bsky.social.
We'll see you guys next time.
Ciao.
Podcast is edited by Peter Crevier. Podcast art is by Lolita Gross. Music by Antonic Music.